sin han grammar, but sin scale. Coram falcha riven jesh shaw lorch or cursi topic tuckla a winning lesh na shay conto August time ancestor lesh in major dirt chakta Gilmore August Bavonium of Wehas horch day Bahonian over a yarn shay. We have called Taoiseach consistently for such debates as this to be a regular feature of Dáil business, but the reality of today is that it will be squeezed and we will be dealing with a range of serious issues without adequate time to get properly to grips with most of them, and that isn't satisfactory. So we have proposed it to be a monthly Dáil debate on the North, and I would urge an Taoiseach, even at this late stage, to agree to this proposal. The Shaw by Shul Gear, a kibis are in process na Shiakana. And the peace process is undeniably the most significant political development on this island since partition. And let's remind ourselves, the partition of this island was both illegitimate and immoral. And as James Connolly predicted, it triggered a carnival of reaction, created two conservative states on the island, and ruled by two elites who entrenched their own power and privilege to the detriment of ordinary citizens. And the campaign of the Civil Rights Association in the late 1960s for equality in housing, education and employment and at elections was met with a violent response by the Stormont regime, supported by the British government and tolerated by the Irish government. And decades of conflict ensued. Decades later, the Good Friday Agreement marked a historic shift in politics in this island by establishing a firm foundation from which it's now possible to continue building a future based on equality. For the first time since partition, there is an international agreement involving the two governments as well as nationalist, Republican and Unionist parties on a way forward. Now, of course, the agreement is one thing, implementing it is an entirely different country. As events in recent days in Belfast have underlined, the peace process needs constant attention by the government and political parties here. And the future of the political structures, let me say it, are currently in a very precarious position. It has faced many challenges in the 17 years since the Good Friday Agreement, and many commitments in that agreement have not been fully implemented. Many of them, Taoiseach, you will know, were not implemented under the previous government. A civic forum in the North, an All-Ireland Civic Forum, a Bill of Rights, a joint North-South Committee of the two Human Rights Commissions, an All-Ireland Charter of Rights, obligations in compliance with the European Charter for regional or minority languages, a commitment made at Weston Park into the murder of human rights lawyer Pat Finucane has not been implemented. In St Andrew's Agreement, a commitment was made near Hula may ag cons mar be shivshe ag cons. So but William get a big order at the hull. Tug me. In the St Andrew's Agreement, a commitment was made to act na Gaeilge. This also has not been implemented. But the current determination of the British government and the Unionist parties to implement hugely destructive cuts to the fabric of society in the North represents one of the gravest threats yet to the institution. Prior to last week's British Tory budget, £1.5 billion had already been sliced from the Executive's budget, in addition to cuts to welfare spending at Westminster. And this austerity agenda has caused hardship for many families and impacted badly on public services. Sinn Féin's priorities have been to ensure efficient functioning of the power-sharing institutions. And remember, we are in partnership there with some parties who don't want to be in partnership with us. Our endeavour has been to create jobs and reduce unemployment, to protect the most vulnerable, and to bring forward working budgets that will ensure the delivery of frontline services. Deputy First Minister Martin McGuinness has played a central role in the Executive's successful job creation strategy that has seen unemployment figures falling. And we tried during the negotiations at Stormont House to strengthen these objectives by creating a coalition against Tory cuts within the Executive and wider society, and by setting out an alternative to austerity. And part of this was agreeing to the budget for 2015-2016. This was done by Sinn Féin in good faith, in the context of a finalised budget with no further cuts and anticipation of the delivery of all aspects of the Stormont House Agreement. And last month, Sinn Féin agreed to give conditional support to technical legislation giving effect to the budget, which we and the other parties had agreed during the Stormont House negotiations. Our support for the Stormont House Agreement was based on full protection for all successful claims to social security benefits under the control of the Executive for the next 6 years. In February, the DUP defaulted on this part of the agreement. Sinn Féin's decision to provide a space is one which needs to be seized upon if solutions can be found. However, the ability of the parties locally to do this has been severely undermined by 4 years of Tory cuts and also by the cuts which have been promised by British Chancellor George Osborne, cuts to the income of working families and further cuts to public services. And this British budget is a clear assault on working families and those on low pay. Instead of austerity, the Northern Executive needs a sustainable and workable budget, investment and powers to grow the economy and to deliver public services. Tá seasamh a ghlach Sinn Féinar an céis seo de réir a chéile agus an sa léir. Sinn Féin is very clear. We are opposed to the policy of austerity in both parts or in any part of this island. We will not be, and watch this space, agent of cuts imposed on citizens in the North at the behest of the Tories. And others there who may be prepared to perform this role should be mindful that these cuts will affect unionist and loyalist citizens as well as everyone else. Sinn Féin wants the political institutions to work and to deliver for citizens. And despite all the difficulties, the Executive, the Assembly, the All-Ireland institutions have worked better for citizens than the years of direct rule by unaccountable British ministers and decades of one-party rule by the Ulster Unionist Party. So our preference is for the current institutions to stay in place. But this cannot be at any price. We don't expect Conservative governments here in Dublin or in London, for that matter, to change their political or ideological positions. That's fair enough. They're wedded to an austerity agenda. However, we do expect, particularly the government here, to accept the special circumstances of the North as a society coming out of conflict. And I welcome the Minister of Foreign Affairs' remarks to me privately, and I don't know if he said this publicly, that he does accept the North as a special place. And we do expect both governments to press and to accept the need for an economic dividend to the necessary process of peace building and change. We demand that they fully implement the Good Friday and subsequent agreements. And both governments need to, and I said this earlier during the Ballymurphy motion debate, should implement those aspects, those elements of the Stormont House Agreement that deal with the past and legacy issues. The two governments can and should proceed with establishing a historical investigations unit, should improve legacy inquests, should establish the Independent Commission on Information Retrieval and so on. Sinn Féin will endeavour to maintain frontline services and strive to protect vulnerable citizens. But the Irish Government needs to play a more active and constructive role in the North. You'll find within unionism you will be welcomed. Thinking unionism knows that the way forward isn't by burning effigies at the 12th. It knows the way forward is through more tolerance, respect and cooperation. They see that as working to our mutual advantage. Now, this government, I've accused you in the past, has been detached in its approach. But you're not unique. Previous administrations, and this was also a feature of governments of which Choctaw Martin was a member, despite their role in the beginning of the peace process. So we need to be invigorating and actively engaged with the parties in the North, but most particularly as government to government with the government in London. And citizens in this state, this has been my experience, expect the Oireachtas to be proactively involved in the peace process. Citizens in the North expect the same. And there is a partitionist mindset here. I know some people are offended when I say that, but it's at the heart of the work of the Dublin establishment. And the Dáil needs to break out of that partitionist mindset. And any government that truly wanted a united Ireland, and I have yet to meet one, but any government that truly wanted a united Ireland would work to it, would understand that this means unity of all the people, including those who see themselves as British. It means pursuing every avenue to promote greater all-Ireland cooperation. It means working away all the time to build relationships on the basis of equality between all the people of the island. There's also an ongoing need to enlist the support of our friends internationally, including in the USA. And it's no accident that Irish America and its representatives have often been more informed, more involved and more progressive on these issues than successive governments here. It means genuine outreach to unionists on the basis of equality and undoing ingrained partitionist thinking on the part of policy makers here. And when one thinks of the office of Taoiseach, we should see someone who is a champion of the peace process, a champion of the people in the north. And that process, and I don't mind the slings and arrows from Fianna Fáil or Fine Gael or Labour or the other parties here, but the peace process itself should be above party politics. There's also a need, and this has been my experience since first I met, with the honourable exception of Albert Reynolds, a Taoiseach, of adopting easily into the role of a junior partner. It baffles me, just as an Irish person, leaving aside politics, how we don't stand up for our own rights as a nation, and we don't deal with the British ourselves on the basis of equality. And that's always been what I have tried to bring, without being dogmatic or domineering, what I have tried to bring to engagements which I have been involved in. Because if you don't respect your own national interest, the British always respect their national interest and will act accordingly. And at the recent Stormont negotiations, and I've said this before, the British government were allowed to set the agenda and the pace of the negotiations. So I would urge political leaders here to accept that the success and the stability of peace and political progress in the north and the All-Ireland institutions are bigger than any point scoring or other political machinations in this state. Now, I note I'm almost drawn and torn between ignoring what Dr. Martin says and responding to him, because his remarks are usually negative, unhelpful, ill-informed. Not so much ill-informed because he knows the story, but deliberately and maliciously dishonest. Now, he decries events in the north, and that begs the question: what is he doing about it? He sits back and he lists a litany of things that are wrong in the north, but he doesn't tell us what he's doing about it. Unlike Fianna Fáil, Sinn Féin have a mandate in both parts of the island. We're also consistent. We're not the people who think that the good old IRA was the class of Republicans from which Fianna Fáil sprung, and that they were all good guys, and those of our generation were all the bad people. We don't accept that. We're not saying that everything they did was right, because patently it wasn't. But we stand with Terence McSweeney, but also with Bobby Sands. We stand with Markovich, but also with Murrell Drum and with Mairead Farrell. In other words, we are not revisionists. We are not revisionists.
Deputy Adams has the floor, please.
We are not revisionists. And one of the disturbing aspects of Micheál Martin's, and I'm sure you'll give me a bit of extra time because you give the last speaker a bit of extra time.
I suppose I'll have to know that people.
Dora Margaret, yeah, you've set the example. But is his departure from the wide pro-agreement consensus that existed across this island in recent years. And on more than one occasion, Dr. Martin has sought to denigrate the political institutions in the North and to erect new barriers to Sinn Féin's full and equal participation in the executive. So what I want to appeal once again for the leader of Fianna Fáil to do.
Sorry, please. Could we have Deputy Adams has the floor now, please, without interruption. Okay. Please.
Okay. Well, at least you would allow me to speak. Section 31 will get read off. Now, what I want to encourage the leader of Fianna Fáil to do, what I want to appeal to him for the third time to do, is to organise in the North. There are people in Ballymurphy waiting. There are people in the Bogside waiting. There are people in Crossmaglen can't sleep at night for the prospect of them coming north. And Fine Gael, Taoiseach.
Sorry, could we have one voice?
Taoiseach, Fine Gael should do the same. Labour should do the same. Now, the peace process is the most important political project on this island, and the building of the All-Ireland sectors, the single island economy, the sectors of health, the environment, energy, the education sector, agriculture, that's how peace will be developed, not least along the border corridor, where real cooperation can be built among neighbours. And all aspects, including the economic dividend, should be nurtured. So, Tommy, John Crickenish, last conclusion. There is a time now of change in the Union. The status of the United Kingdom, Maria, developments in Scotland, and more perhaps to come in the time ahead. The British government's commitment to a referendum on membership of the EU all present challenges and also opportunities. So this government needs to be fully and consistently engaged in a strategic manner in keeping with the constitutional obligations of the government, as well as the responsibilities under a series of agreements from the Good Friday Agreement onwards. And I would like to think, Taoiseach, that this will only be one of a series of debates like this for as long as you remain in the government.
Now call Deputy Claire Daly, sharing with Deputy Mick Wallace and